Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parajikacharya Astottara Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parajikacharya Astottara Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Narayanam Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamadirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. unto Nar Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta prayesha bandreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavat yuttama shloke Bhakti bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So everyone seems to be quite warmly dressed. Can we turn the heat off? I think it's a little noisy. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Oops, that's not what I'm looking for. Sorry. Okay. Sorry, this was a last minute thing here. Okay, on this third day of December, 2023 in San Diego, a reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Canto 7, The Science of God, Chapter 3, Hiranyakashipu's Plan to Become Immortal, text number 28. Nama Adyaya Bijaya Jnana Vijnana Murtaye Pranindriya Manobuddhi Vikaraya Vyaktim Iyushe Nama Adyaya Bijaya Jnana Vijnana Murtaye Pranindriya Manobuddhi Vikaraya Vyaktim Iyushe Nama Adhyaya Bijaya Jnana Vijnana Murtaye Pranindriya Manobuddhi Vikaraya Vyaktim Iyushe Nama Adhyaya Bijaya Jnana Vijnana Murtaye Pranindriya Manobuddhi Vikaraya Vyaktim Iyushe. Nama Adhyaya Bijaya Vijnana Murtaye Pranindriya Manobuddhi Vikaraya Vyaktim Iyushe. Go ahead. Nama Adhyaya Bijaya Jnana Vijnana Murtaye Pranindriya Manobuddhi Vikaraya Vyaktim Iyushe. Go ahead. Nama Adhyaya Bijaya Jnana Vijnana Murtaye Pranindriya Manobuddhi Vikaraya Vyaktim Iyushe. Nama Adhyaya Bijaya Jnana Vijnana Murtaye Pranindriya Manobuddhi Vikaraya Vyaktim Iyushe. Nama Adhyaya Bijaya Jnana Vijnana Murtaye Pranindriya Manobuddhi Vikaraya Vyaktim Iyushe. Laudably? No? Okay. Nama Adhyaya Bijaya Jnana Vijnana Murtehe Pranendriya Mano Buddhi Vikara Vyaktamiyuse. Anyone online? No. Chris, can you pull these curtains for me? This sound is a bit stressing. Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances. Ajaya. Unto the original living creature. Bijaya. The seed of the cosmic manifestation. Jnana. Of knowledge. Vijnana. And of practical application. Murteye. Unto the deity or form. Prana. Of the life air. Indriya. Of the senses. Manaha. Of the mind. Buddhi. Of the intelligence. Vikarai. By transformations. Vyaktim. Manifestation. Iyushe. Who has obtained. Yamuna, you know how to turn this down a little bit? Thanks. Okay. Translation, this is Hiranyakashipu glorifying Lord Brahma. I offer my obeisances to the original personality within this universe, Lord Brahma, who is cognizant and who can apply his mind and realized intelligence in creating this cosmic manifestation. It is because of his activities that everything within the universe is visible. He is therefore the cause of all manifestations. Purport. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The Vedanta Sutra begins by declaring that the Absolute Person is the original source of all creation. Janmad yasya yataha. One may ask whether Lord Brahma is the Supreme Absolute Person. No, the Supreme Absolute Person is Krishna. Brahma receives his mind, intelligence, materials, and everything else from Krishna. And then he becomes the secondary creator, the engineer of this universe. In this regard, we may note that the creation does not take place accidentally because of the explosion of a chunk. Such nonsensical theories are not accepted by Vedic students. The first created living being is Brahma, who is endowed with perfect knowledge and intelligence by the Lord. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Tene Brahma Vadaya Adikabaye. Although Brahma is the first created being, he is not independent, for he receives help from the Supreme Personality of Godhead through his heart. There is no one but Brahma at the time of creation, and therefore he receives his intelligence directly from the Lord through the heart. This has been discussed in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Brahma is described in this verse as the original cause of the cosmic manifestation, and this applies to his position in the material world. There are many, many such controllers, all of whom are created by the Supreme Lord, Vishnu. This is illustrated by an incident described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. When the Brahma of this particular universe was invited by Krishna to Dwaraka, he thought that he was the only Brahma. Therefore, when Krishna inquired from his servant which Brahma was at the door to visit, Lord Brahma was surprised. He replied that, of course, Lord Brahma, the father of the four Kumaras, was waiting at the door. Later, Lord Brahma asked Krishna why he had inquired which Brahma had come. He was then informed that there are millions of other Brahmas because there are millions of universes. Krishna then called all the Brahmas, who immediately came to visit him. The Chaturmukha Brahma, the four-headed Brahma of this universe, thought himself a very insignificant creature in the presence of so many Brahmas with so many heads. Thus, although there is a Brahma who is the engineer of each universe, Krishna is the original source of all of them. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Salakaya Chakshur Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, Hiranyakashipu is very excited because his austerities have culminated in the appearance of Lord Brahma. And he's going to try to get a benediction from Lord Brahma that Brahma can't give. He wants to be immortal, which means he wants to be God. But Brahma said, well, he will say, Prabhupada often recounted this, that I myself am not immortal. How can I give you immortality? So, as you well know, Hiranyakashipu tried to outwit Krishna by getting these benedictions from Brahma. When Brahma came, he offered him, whatever you want. And the only thing he really wanted was to be immortal, which is a pretty big boon. But Brahma said, I don't know if he says it here in Bhagavatam, but the way Prabhupada always relates to it, said, well, I myself am not immortal, so how can I give you immortality? So he asked for everything but, in other words, everything that he thought would ensure that he really was immortal, that I can't be killed in the day or the night, I can't be killed by any weapon, I can't be killed on the land, in the sea, or in the air, I can't be killed by any of the creatures you created. He thought that he created them all. On and on like that. I can't be inside or outside, So, it just sounds like he's got it covered. He was confident, overconfident. So, one of the things that this whole pastime has shown is that those who are demons, really, can we say advanced demons, who are really powerful demons, they are first of all very intelligent. We know Ravana was a great scholar, Prabhupada Hiranyakashipu was a great scholar, and we heard in the Hiranyakashipu Gita, it's the only thing you can call it, when he was consoling the nephews of his nephews, the sons of Hiranyaksha, and the wife of Hiranyaksha, because he had been killed by Vishnu in the form of Varaha. He was consoling them, and it sounds like he's speaking from the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. It's just remarkable, he knows all this. And the interesting thing, as I pointed out when we read it, that as those who read Prabhupada's books know, that sometimes he puts some of the purport into the translation. That's like that. So Hiranyakashipu was preaching them, basically saying, which I remember saying to my own mother and reading from the Bhagavad Gita when my father passed away back in '87, that he's not really dead, that there's reincarnation, and he's gone on, and I may have mentioned because I'm a devotee, therefore it's more auspicious, whatever, I don't know. But just that fact was very consoling, that idea, she accepted it. And she had been very positive in my devotional career. She subscribed to Bhakti Godhead magazine, maybe because I was working on it, but anyway, she subscribed. And when I would visit her, I remember we had a little kirtan, and we were dancing together, And then at the very end, the last couple of weeks, she was in hospice care in my brother's house, and he had gone to visit my nephew, his sons at University of Chicago. So he went there, so he wanted me to stay with my mother in Ithaca while he was gone. But it was hospice, And so I said, Mom, it's time for japa. And she didn't know what that was, but she knew about Hare Krishna. No beads, and she didn't memorize the mantra. We did 2 names at a time, Hare Krishna. And she was, Hare Krishna, and she was really into it. It was like very perfect pronunciation and everything. We went on for about 15 minutes. 2 weeks later, she was gone. I went back, came here, and she had gone. So Hiranyakashipu was preaching to them, how that we take different forms and life is eternal, basically transmigration of the soul. And in one of the translations, Prabhupada talks, he mentioned that therefore one should not lament for any departed souls, like that. And I said, well, what is Hiranyakashipu? His whole life now is getting revenge for killing his brother, because Vishnu has killed Hiranyaksha. So he wasn't really taking his own advice very seriously. But he also mentions one of them about the super soul. And I said, is that really in the translation? And Prabhupada put that in there. But anyway, so that was that. And it was remarkable because he was, it could have been a Vaishnava, who was doing the same thing, basically. And then I thought, Yeah, this is one of the first characteristics of the demons. This word dambha. If you read the 16th chapter, when he starts describing the demons, after he first describes the qualities of the saintly people, there's a whole list of 28, I think, qualities. And then he says, and now I'll describe the demons. And he starts out with this phrase, Dambo, Darpo, Bimanascha. These are the first three qualities of the demons. And the very first one is Dambha. Now, Dambha Prabhupada would always translate as pride, but it has the connotation of false pride, meaning that you're proud of something that you don't really have. You're faking it, And I always tell this story, so forgive me if you've heard it before. But way back when I was a kid, some of you may remember, those who have a few white hairs, that there was a magazine called Life magazine. Then Life and Time were the two main magazines. And Life was very much a large format with a lot of pictures, right? So they did a special on the New York Mafia one week. It was a weekly. And all of these pictures, I think some of them were mugshots. But they looked really miserable. They did not look happy at all. But I knew, and from movies and reading about, that they seem to be very religious. They'll go to church. Many of them are Catholics because they're Italian, whatever. And they go to church, because nobody. And I thought of, when I finally, came to the movement, I read about the Kṛṣṇa book, and you start with the beginning with Kamsa, and how he hears that omen that the eighth child of your cousin sister, will kill you. Is going to kill you, so he's ready to chop off her head. And Vasudev is preaching to him, and trying to pacify him and everything. And then he comes up with the idea, but he's not pacified. He says, "All right, I will deliver to you all the children. Don't worry." And his word was very good. So that was something. But the big thing was that it'll look very bad for you. It'll impinge on you. To kill your sister, probably his sister, it's right in the Bhagavatam, sister, even though Kamsa's father was Ugrasen, who was the brother of Devaka, who was the father of Devaki. That makes cousins. But in the Vedic culture, the cousins are like brothers and sisters. And that's why you have in the Bhagavad Gita this phrase, cousin brothers. The relation between the Pandavas and the Kauravas, because they were all related like that. Anyway, so those two things: one, the promise that he would deliver the children, and two, the idea that it'll really look bad for you to behead your sister on the day of her marriage, and she's not really in the direct threat, like that. So that was pacifying him. So this is the concern. This concern with outer, your outer silhouette or profile, and even though you're a demon, you're the worst person. This is one of the demonic qualities, dambha, hypocrisy. So this is what Hiranyakashipu. Now he's consoled them, the whole chapter of that, and now he's performing these unbelievable austerities. He goes to the was it Gandhamadana mountain? It was some mountain, I forget the name of it. And he's just standing on his tiptoes, he's holding his arms up for hundreds of years, and he doesn't care. The ants eat his body, and there's nothing left. And how's he staying alive? Well, he's keeping, by mystic power, he's keeping his prana circulating through the bones, Whoever heard of that? And so by the force of his austerity, he's heating the universe, and the demigods are burning, and they say, what's going on? And they see this, it's turning. So they appeal to Brahmā to do something, and he's come down, and that's where we're at now. So Brahmā is also very much impressed. He cast a few drops of the water from his powerful kamandalu. He's got this water pot he carries. And so Hiranyakashipu has come out, and he's got this young, powerful body, extremely powerful from all the austerities. But he's now got the darshan of Lord Brahmā, and now he's offering obeisances. It was cognitive, who can apply his mind, realize intelligence, creating his karma, because of it, that everything within the universe is visible. Now, one thing about this is glorifying him. Why is he glorifying? This is a standard thing in prayers, in Vandanam. Thinking of like prayers of Queen Kunti or the other prayers. I once did a little seminar with Romapad Swami. I think he still does it, Christmas, New Year's retreat in Chicago. And he would invite me up there. And so he would set the topic, and one year the topic was Vandanam. You know, so what is Vandanam? Because Vandanam is, oh, that's Vandeham, I offer my obeisances, offering obeisances. But it's also prayer, right? Two things, prayer and offering obeisances. So I looked at some of the prayers in the Bhagavatam, and I see that there's actually three things going on with Vandanam, when it's really extended like that. One is obeisances. Kunti begins with obeisances, Namaste Purusham Tvajam, and she ends with obeisances. The very last word is Namaha in her last prayer. So that's always there. And then there's glorification. There's glorification. And then there's a request. Three things with Vandanam. You know, in the West, prayer means you're asking something, right? But notice the logic of it. Just like when we sing Tulsi prayer, Tulsi song, I always think of that. The first part is, you're glorifying. Anyone who takes shelter of you has his wishes fulfilled. You know, you already. Well, if that's really true, then my prayer will be fruitful, right? So that glorification kind of encourages you to, you know, first of all, everyone likes to be praised, and then there's the request, because you're so powerful, you can offer the request. So he's conflating this Lord Brahma with God. You know, he should know that Lord Brahma is also a created being. He has a birth, and if you have a birth, you're going to have a death. So how can he give him immortality? But that's what he really wants, and so he's going to glorify him. He's starting to glorify him now. And it's very close to, like, edging on glorifying God, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's who he really wants to get the boon from, you know. But finally he'll have to realize, well, I can't do that, so I'll get everything. I'll go around the back and get it this way. So that's what he's saying. Now, this is standard, information about Lord Brahma. He's cognizant, who can apply his mind, realize intelligence in creating his cosmic manifestation. It's because of his activities that everything within the universe is visible. So, Prabhupada, in his purport, he's making the distinction, he's drawing the distinction between Brahma and Krishna. And he's quoting first from the Bhagavatam, or also from the Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra begins with the Tato Brahma Jigyasa, right? That's the first sutra. And it's a call to the reader. Now, therefore, now meaning now that you're a human being, therefore you should inquire into Brahman. What is Brahman? Second sutra. Janma Yasya Yataha, which is the first words of the Bhagavatam. Janmad yasya yaton vayad. It actually begins with those very words. Janmad yasya yataha. But it's not a sutra, it's a whole verse. It's a person, it's the Supreme Person. Vasudeva, the first words are Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya in the Bhagavatam, right? And so it describes he's Janmad yaton vayad itadatas charteshu bhigya, so that he knows everything directly and indirectly, self-taught. He doesn't demand swarat automatically. He doesn't have to learn from anyone else. That's very important. Then the second line talks about him enlightening Brahma. Tene Brahma Vadaya Adikaviye. Because when you first read it, you say, oh yeah, there's Brahma. No, that Brahma, diacritic is very important. The last day is short. That means that that's Brahma. It's a word for the Vedic knowledge. The Adikaviye, the original wise person, that's Brahma. How did he learn? Vida, in the heart, directly. Because there's no one else around. Krishna's not even manifest, so it had to be through the heart. He's already there. And he learned all this Vedic knowledge, which then he passed down to Narada, who passed it to Vyasa, and goes all the way down in the disciplic session. So that's Brahma, and we learn so much about him when it's describing the third canto, when he's, the description of the kingdom of God. And so many beautiful verses. He describes who gets to go to Vaikuntha, So first he says who doesn't get to go, and it's all about what you hear, what you choose to hear, or in our case also read. Yanna vajant agabado vachanano varat chinvandiheni vishaya kukata matigni. Yastu shuta hatabagayana barata saras tang tang chapanta shadaneshu tamaksu hanta. The last word in his verse is hanta. He loves the Brahma Samhita meter. So many of his prayers It's Brahma. Chintamani pakata sadmasakalpa vriksha. So these prayers are also there. So what is he saying here? Here's who doesn't get to go. Yanna Vajanti Agabidho. Agabidho is the name for Krishna, means he who destroys all sinful reactions. Rachananuvada. Rachananuvada means the creation of words. A book or whatever you hear, you can hear. Trinvanti. Those who hear Rachananuvada, Trinvanti, ye Anyavishaya. Anyavishaya means other topics besides those dealing with Krishna, who's the killer of all, the destroyer of sin. Vachananuvada, Trinvanti ye Anyavishaya kukata, not Krishna kata, kukata means bad talks, which matigni destroys your intelligence. Yastu Shuddha, those topics, having heard, what's the result? Hatabagaya, they take away all your good fortune of a human being. Atasadas, a wonderful phrase, atasadas. The word sadas means the essence. And ata means takes away. So it takes away the essence of your quality as a human being, which means your intelligence, your moral character, your Aryan, the Aryans are those who are know the spiritual values of life. So in other words, the topics, what you hear, the mundane talks, destroy your higher intelligence. Those topics, all of them, chapancha, they throw you down to a place of darkness and ignorance where there's no shelter, alas. So much keys on what we hear. On the other hand, very beginning of Bhagavatam, second verse, describing the glories of the Bhagavatam, Dharma Projitakaitavo, we kicked out all cheating Dharma, Nirmatsaranam Satam, understood by those who are non-envious, Vedyam Vastam Atra Vastu, this Vastava Vastu is a nice phrase. I remember that when I used to study Western philosophy, the thing as it is, the being, the ground of being, what is the essence of being, that's what this Vastava Vastu is. This is the essence of the essence, what is real reality. That's what the Bhagavatam is giving us. Shivadam, the Bhagavatam itself bestows good fortune. Tapatrayon Muladam, uproots the threefold miseries, just by hearing it. Srimad Bhagavate Mahamanukute, it was compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, Prabhupada said. King Vaparaya, what use or other, do we need any other scripture? Because Ishvara Sadhyo Didyabadujate Shushabis Takshana, those who hear this literature with this Shushabis, very important word. Prabhupada would often define it as submissive oral reception, or ardent hearing. That's another phrase he would use. In other words, with full attention, absorbing and taking in the words, and it has to be given by a realized soul. So there's all of those things. Here's this supreme scripture as translated and explained by a pure devotee. This is the real medicine for birth and death. So he said, if one hears it that way, this literature from the right source, then the Lord will manifest in his heart. You'll get realization of God, And actually that's described in the second chapter. We won't get into all of that, but the second chapter gives a full lesson in that, ending with one sees the Lord in one's heart. And he also sees himself in his original form, his Sarup Siddhi. It's right there. Second chapter. Whenever because we made a book out of that. This was my idea, because Prabhupada spoke so often on those verses 1 to 6, which is what is real Dharma, through 1 to 20, 19, 20, 21, like that. Culminating in Vidyate Vidya Grantistis, come from hearing Bhagavatam, Srinvatam Sukata Krishna Punnishavana Kirtana, and Krishna in the heart, he's very happy. He clears away all of the abhadras, the unwanted things from your heart. He's purifying. Just like Lord Chaitanya says, Chaitodharpada Marjana. And there's a progressive, purification till you get to the point of Evam Prasanna Manaso Bhagavad Bhakti Yogata by as we see in the morning, one of the verses there, by regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam. This was every time I give class, I divert a little bit, some editing pastimes, facts. That was what Prabhupada wrote. in the first canto for his Delhi Bhagavatams. But that's by regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam. When Hayagriva edited this, there were no regular classes on Bhagavatam. Prabhupada was giving evening class, basically, So he changed that to just by regularly hearing the Bhagavatam or regularly reading the Bhagavatam. But Prabhupada and when that was revised in '76, Prabhupada was on the planet. It was revised by Jayawada Maharaj, going back to the Delhi Bhagavatam. And it came out, devotees said, oh, just see. They're spoiling Prabhupada's books. They want us to go to Bhagavatam class, so they're putting it right into the... Jayawada had to show them the original book. He said, no, this is what Prabhupada said. By regular attending classes by rendering service to the pure devotee. So it's two, book Bhagavatam and person Bhagavatam. All of this inauspicious are destroyed almost to nil. It's prayena. In other words, there's a progression. It doesn't happen instantly, but you're getting purified. So the end result of that is vidyate hridayam grantis. This is the end result of hearing Bhagavatam. Now you got to get a taste for it, and that comes earlier in the taste for hearing by serving the pure devotee. That's it. That's there. How's that one start? Shushusho shadadhanasya vasudeva kataruchi syan mahat sevaya vipra punyatirtana shevana. This shushusho, this is a word that comes out, that is the word in the second verse of the Bhagavatam. That's the ardent hearing. That's the submissive oral reception. So he says, by hearing the words from the pure devotee and serving, you get the taste for hearing. The nectar, Krishna Katha becomes nectar to you. And that is an essential thing, because then you're, Parikshit was the ideal. He was ready to sit there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, not eating, sleeping, or drinking, and just drinking in the Bhagavatam. And that's all he did. And then he went back to Godhead. So he's the ideal. But so the final verse says, vidyate hridayam grantis. By hearing in this way, Krishna is purifying. Here's the result. All of the knots in the heart, your material attachment, are torn asunder, purified. You see? Chidyante sarvasang. All your doubts are destroyed because you're getting direct perception of Krishna. It's vidyate hridayam grantis. Chidyante. It's again cutting, both of them mean cutting. Chidyate sarva sangshaya, your doubts are destroyed. Chiyante chastikarmani, all your karma is destroyed. And then drishta evatmanishvare. Now this word this was a problem for Hayagriva when he was trying to edit it. Because Prabhupada said, one sees the self as the controlling factor. Now that phrase, controlling factor, I think was his word for Ishvara, which is master. He uses that in the purport. So he changed it to master. But you couldn't say one sees oneself as the master, But that seems to be what Prabhupada said. So what was the solution? One sees the self as master. In other words, the self being, I guess, the super soul. But it wasn't capitalized. So it was very confusing for devotees. But what Prabhupada meant there, and it's there at the very beginning of the purport, the very first sentence, is that understanding oneself means that you also get the vision of the Lord. I don't have it in front of me. But the idea is that one sees oneself and one's master. In other words, you see yourself in your original form, and this is the Swarup Siddhi, and you see Krishna in the heart. Premanjana Charita. So that's the way it reads now if you look at it. But the point is, it all depends on hearing. And this is what Brahmā, he emphasizes there. That's how you don't go. If you just hear mundane topics, then those topics will send you to hell. But then he had so many positive verses, and this one I memorized when I first read it back in '73. Let's see if I can remember it. Ye tu tvadiya chadanam vajrakosha gandham jigranti karna bivaraishu divata nitam bhaktya guhita chadanak padayashatesham napaiti nata vidiyam buraham sapungsam. Something like that. Anyway, last night I'm not so sure. But he says, those who smell the fragrance of the Lord's lotus feet by hearing the descriptions from books like Bhagavatam. Ye tu tvadiya, he's praying to the Lord himself. Ye tu tvadiya chadanambuja kosha gandham. Chadanambuja is the word for lotus feet. And kosha gandham means the internal part of the lotus feet. They smell the fragrance by hearing. In other words, and then in a later verse he says they see by hearing. This is all of the senses can be enlivened
just by hearing the transcendental sound from the right source. So what happens when they drink in and they smell that fragrance of the Lord's lotus feet by hearing? Then they accept the process of bhakti. Bhaktya grihita chadanak pariyachitesham. And they're never separated from the lotus. You're never separated from the lotus of their hearts. You take your residence there. So that's the conclusion is that hearing the Bhagavatam, hearing the chanting of the holy name, these transcendental sounds which Prabhupada made so available to us, which are our salvation. That's how we can advance in devotional service, by hearing progressing in our ability to hear and study and remember and share these vibrations. That's again and again in the Bhagavatam, and that's the whole essence of this movement. I mean, how did it start? In the West, Prabhupada somehow got a venue. Yes, it was on the Bowery. It was up in the loft. But he had his own place, and he was doing the kirtan, and people were coming, and just by the chanting, they became purified enough to hear. Not all of them. Some came, some left. But there were a certain number who it affected deep in the heart. They heard Prabhupada give his talk on the Bhagavad Gita. I think he was speaking in Gita at that time also. And then the prasadam was such an important element, cooked by Prabhupada himself, you can imagine, So all of that, it's a question of purification, meaning that it's already there. The perfection is already there. We just have to clean away all the dirt. We have to be determined. Otherwise, we're mad. We have the kind of a madness of this fascination with the material energy and with the evanescent sensations of pleasure that we can get, which just keeps us bound to this world of birth and death. So this is going to go on. Hiranyakashipu is going to keep glorifying him, and Prabhupada gives a nice little summary of Lord Brahma and his role in the creation of the universe and overseeing the universe. Who can imagine such a task? At the very beginning, the big headache, if I can make headaches that he has, is to try to populate it. To try to populate. I mean, you read that the false start. Demons come out, go after him. He has to cast that body aside. The Kumaras come out. They don't want to become Prajapatis. They keep themselves 5 years old. That's a big headache. Becomes angry. Shiva comes out. It's just not a smooth process. It's trying to manage the material world. Anything in the material world, there's going to be trouble, So eventually, of course, he succeeds. But he's got these things to worry about. The demons, or Indra. That Prabhupada would tell that story where Indra was cursed. He did something like we know what Indra does all the time, and then he got cursed to become a hog. You remember that story? So he's down there, and he's got his hog wife, and he's got his hoglets, and he's happy in hog heaven. He's on the way to one to describe it. And so Brahma wants to go down. He said, but the weather is not being taken care of. Brahma's functions, he's managing the whole heavenly planets and everything. So he goes down to try to bring Indra back, in his hog body. So he says, "Come on, you belong in the heavenly planets." And Indra the hog says, "I can't go." Prabhupada says, "I can't go. I have my responsibilities here. My wife, I have my kids, and I'm all situated. I'm eating my favorite food. I won't mention what it is." And so Brahma doesn't always tell this part, but I think the way it ends is that Brahma says, "Well, the only thing I could do is break his attachment," so he kills his little hoglets. Isn't it? Have you heard that? So, but this is very illustrative, because no matter where you're coming from in your previous life, you can get so covered over in the present life that you completely identify with that body, if it's a human body, whatever it is, or whatever. And you forget. This is the thing. You forget all your and so the acharyas come, and Krishna comes to remind us of who we really are and what our legacy is. What our real destination should be. But how to overcome that conditioning? You know, because they had, just like there's one person who in my apartment complex there. She's a young lady. She's in her maybe 30s, and she smokes cigarettes. You know, but whoever she's with in there doesn't want to, you know, she has to go outside to smoke the cigarette. And so that's how I meet it. You see her, you know, Hare Krishna. And it's such, I mean, you know, it's not a question of ignorance. You know that it's bad for you. It's bad in a million different ways, you know. And it's bad for the environment and everything. And, but still, the knowledge is not strong enough to overcome the habit. And so it's like, yeah, I need a cigarette. Like, yes, I need to smoke. And I smoked for about not 8 years, maybe 6, 7 years. When I was 15, it was 1962. All the movies, all of the heroes smoked. Humphrey Bogart was my hero. He's always smoking. That's it. The Marlboro Man, right? The whole thing. All the kids smoked Marlboros, didn't they? I mean, so I said, okay, I got to train up. I got to get smoking. You know, so I went out to the park and I started smoking. Really? Okay. Got it. Luckily, I never got, you know, I didn't get too much into it, but I smoked. And what really finally saved me was when I got seriously ill. I was in hospital for a month. Some years later, and was I contracted a serious case of hepatitis, and there was no question of smoking. You know, I'm lying in the hospital bed, and I was there for a month, so kind of broke it. When I came out, I was into raw foods and vegetarianism. So, but some people, they just they can't kick it. You know, you have the best shot if you're a devotee, and you can get the higher taste, and it's against the regular principle. So you have a great incentive to gig, but it's still very powerful. And even alcohol, you know, it could be in these addictive things. But everything, it's just a metaphor. You know, the things that we're addicted to. We're addicted to sense gratification of different kinds. It may be mode of goodness, it may be a mixture of passion and ignorance. And so that addiction, that's Maya. She covers your knowledge, she covers your intelligence. I have to have this. This is what I need. And so your intelligence is distorted in such a way that you can justify it. But there's no justification, and it's totally self-destructive. So Krishna consciousness means just the opposite: purifying yourself of every vestige, if you want perfection, of every vestige of material desire, and becoming mad to glorify Krishna, serve Krishna, see Krishna, give Krishna. You know, that we see that extreme in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. That it becomes you're impelled, you know, to serve Krishna. That's all you want. I don't even want liberation. You know, if I have to stay here in order to serve you, that's what I really want. You know, to be that attracted to drink the nectar of Krishna's service. So that's what Srila Prabhupada wanted us to do, is to get so purified that we couldn't imagine not serving, and we're very eager to do our duties, and really the most important service, to share Krishna with others. And we saw that was what Prabhupada was so determined to do, and drinking the nectar of preaching. And when it became successful after a short time, you know, he just endangered his health, whatever it was, you know, and just as long as he could do it. So that's the what's really attractive in this world. Everything else is a reflection, often perverted reflection, and it keeps us bound here. So we've got the right medicine here, and this is all good that you're attending the class. And Prabhupada tells this story about how Brahmā is also, you know, chastened, that he's the smallest Brahma with only 4 heads, and there's thousands of other Brahmas, some have thousands of heads. He said, oh, I see, because he was getting a little puffed up, you know. He only lives 311 trillion, 40 billion years, you know. That's like, really? That's all? You know, the other Brahmins are saying too. So everything is relative, but we're fortunate to be in the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. And Brahma's, so many wonderful teachings here. The 14th chapter, 10th canto, there's whole commentaries written on it. It's so much. So if you read that, that's one of the longest chapters in the Krishna book, because Prabhupada had so much to translate about the commentators of those prayers. And especially that one where, Ramananda Roy is speaking to Lord Chaitanya in the 8th chapter, Madhya Lila, and Lord Chaitanya is taking the role of the student, right? He's a disciple, and he's asking Ramananda Roy. So Ramananda Roy starts and he goes on, we starts with Varnashram. Now that's good, but you can go more and more and more. And finally, where Lord Chaitanya says, that's very good, but you can go more, is the prayer of Lord Brahma. What is the prayer, the one prayer that he picks out? Jnane piyasam pasyana mandaheva jivanti sanmukaditam babadiya bhatam stane stitak shutigatam tanuvan manobi ye prayaso ajitatito bisitaistri lokyam. Very, very pertinent to this, this Damodar month that we just finished. Because he says, give up all of this hard effort to acquire gyan and to, speculate and all this. Jnane piyasam, very hard. Udapasyat, throw it far away. You don't need that. And what should I do then? Namanta eva, humbly. Namanta eva, jnane priyasam udapasyamanta eva, jivanti sanmukaditam. Live in this way. Sanmukaditam, from the mouth of the sat, of the saints. In other words, pure devotees. Bhavadiya Vartam, accounts of your activities, form and name. This Bhavadiya Vartam, he's speaking to Krishna, little Krishna. Bhavadi. Stane stitak, you don't have to do anything radical, don't go off to the Himalaya, take sannyas, just stay where you do what you're doing. Stay in your. Stane stitak shutigatam. Follow this path of hearing from the lips of the pure devotees. You remember in those days, there's no books or anything. This is Stane shutigatam. And very important phrase, and serve those vibrations with your body, words, and mind. Tanuvan manobe. With your senses, your mind, follow the instructions of how to act and how to do that. And with your words, repeat them. And with your mind, contemplate them and really find out, get well versed. Tanuvan manobe, ye prayasho. In this way, those who follow this principle, they're ajita jita. They're able to conquer the unconquerable Lord by developing prema, just like Mother Yashoda was conquering Krishna, right, with her love. So that's Ajitai Trilokyam. In all three worlds, this is the only way to conquer the Lord. You can't conquer him, by force. You can only conquer him by love, loving devotion. Then he agrees to be conquered because he likes that. So that's also another prayer of Brahma. And there's so many wonderful things. He glorifies the devotees of Vrindavan, and he says, I'll stop now after this, how fortunate, aho bhagyam, nanda gopa vadaukasam, tanvitam padamanam tam purna brahma sanatanam. I got that one right. How fortunate they are. Aho bhagyam, nanda gopa vadaukasam. The coward community led by Nanda Maharaj. Yanmittam Padamanandam, because the Supreme Brahman, the Supreme Lord, has become their friend. Mitram Padamanandam, Purnam Brahma Sanatanam. And Prabhupada quotes in the purport, he quotes this verse twice in the matter of a couple of paragraphs. And he says, Shrutam apade, smitam patade, bharanam anhe bhajanta bhavabhita, ahami anandam bande yasyadinde padam brahma. It's such a beautiful little verse. Shrutam apade, some worship the Shrutis. Some worship the Smritis. Some worship the Mahabharata, being afraid of birth and death. But as for me, I worship Nanda Maharaj, in whose courtyard the Supreme Brahman is crawling. Quotes that verse twice in one purport. Very rare. I don't know if there's any other place where he does that. Bhabhat's so into that verse, he quotes it at the beginning of the purport and then after a paragraph. So this is what it sounds like when you don't know that you're supposed to give class and you're trying to give a spontaneous class. Hare Krishna. Any questions? Any comments? Yes, Yamuna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bhopuru.
It's really interesting, the idea that what we consume through our ears can actually cover over our intelligence and we can become
totally
distracted. But those of us that live outside the temple, even maybe we've been practicing for decades, still vicariously, the material energy is
involuntarily.
There. Yeah, involuntarily.
Yes, it's very
So
polluting.
how to stay, at what point, at what decade do we just stay transcendental to this, the noise?
you know, you have to fight back, and the way is, you know, it's very difficult, you know, to work a 9-to-5 job and have to associate in an office with people. I mean, it's inconceivable to me. But but still, you know, you can chant as much as possible. At the lunch break, you can read Bhagavatam, learn verses, and who knows? There might be somebody in that office who's, you know, receptive, and you can preach to them, you know, and that's always helps. But I think it depends on you developing the ability to, you know, because steeping yourself at every opportunity in the vibrations and service, you know, coming to the temple as you do as much as possible. And then chanting, you know, chanting, and then take it inside. And even though you're talking to somebody, you're still remembering Krishna, or, you know, it's not that far back. In other words, you know, they try to. You have to have a proactive way of navigating such a situation. But it's difficult, you know. I mean, ultimately, that's such an important thing, you know, to not associate with the non-devotees. But how are you going to live in this world? You know, sometimes it's necessary to do that. So you minimize it, and then when you have a chance, you know, like usually you have a vacation. I remember I had a 9-to-5 job for a year as a hospital worker back in '71. I was an inhalation therapist, but I was also doing my yoga, and when weekends I would visit, you know, the temple and places, and Ramakrishna mission. You know, I wasn't until I, you know, really got fixed. And then, you know, I would wake up early. I would do my hatha yoga. I would do my japa on my way to the hospital. I would chant kirtan. You know, I don't think we had any players anyway. And then when I got there, when I'd go out on the rounds, you know, I'd try to cure the patients by projecting the Hare Krishna mantra. I mean, in my mind, you know, I'd be bubbling up, and Krishna, 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 Krishna. I don't know if anyone went back to guided, probably not. But and then I got a vacation, and I used it on a retreat. I went on a retreat. My hatha yoga teachers, you know, but then, you know, you couldn't talk, which was great. You know, there was no kukata. And what was I reading? Of course, I was reading. What was it? Was it Be Here Now? What was that book by? What is it? Yeah, Be Here Now. And he was talking, it was in there about Hare Krishna, you know. So, and then I remember distinctly, when I got on the bus to come back to the city, I said, because then we could talk finally, I said, you know, the one thing I really learned in this retreat, all you got to do is chant Hare Krishna. And I think I got a little mercy from Lord Chaitanya from saying that. Anyway, I made my way, you know, and gradually I saw there was no reason for me not to join the temple at a certain point. So it was, you know, it was an effort, but you have your own space, and whenever possible, you know, as you do, you associate with devotees. And, you know, at a certain point, if you can, you know, just get full time, and you may have to retire, you know, or something, but. And keep that as a goal, you know, that, okay, when I retire, I'm going to, you know, maybe you can even put a deposit down on a place in Vrindavan that you'll have, you know, whatever. So it's, many devotees, you know, are in that situation. I mean, in the old days, if you're a Hare Krishna, you joined the temple. Otherwise, you blooped, never heard from again. You know, I mean, it's not like that anymore. Most of the devotees live outside the temple. All right, it's getting late. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.